Chasidus on the Parsha, Parsha's Teitzei. So let's take a look at the first verse in Parsha's Teitzei. It says, Ki Teitzei l'melchama lo yivecha v'nosnoi Hashem elokecha b'yadecha v'yeshavita tivyoy. If you should go out to war against your enemies, and Hashem your God puts them in your hand, and you capture prisoners from them. Our rabbis have told us that this verse alludes to a great war, greater than a physical war, which is the war that a man has within himself, which is the war against his evil inclination, which we call in Hebrew the Yetzer Hara, that animalistic side of you. And elucidating on this topic is the great Hasidic master, the Tzfer Shlomo, the Radomska Rebbe. And he says, do you ever see somebody, or maybe you know somebody yourself, that worked a lot on themselves to control themselves and develop self-control and discipline, and perhaps they defeated a lot of their urges and temptations, and then one day their urges and temptations come back, or maybe one day whatever they used to be obsessed with or into, they just stumble in that area. And then they become depressed, and they say to themselves, why am I having these urges that I one time beat? Like, I don't want these urges anymore. I thought I was better than that. So the Tzfer Shlomo says that we have to take a right Torah perspective on something like this. And he says our whole purpose to be in this world is to battle these inclinations. So he gives an example. Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov, our great forefather, wanted to live in peace and tranquility. And he was rebuked for that. That towards the end of his life, he said, I've already dealt with so much in my life. I just kind of want to chill, to use a colloquialism. And what ended up happening, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the whole incident of Yosef happen to him as kind of a message to say, hey, you are in this world to work on yourself. I have you in this world for a reason. You're not in this world to chill, so to speak. And because when are you supposed to chill? You're supposed to chill in the next world, in Olam Haba, where you have a great place in Gan Eden, and in heaven, where you have all of these rewards, and that's a world of no growth. That's a world where you're kind of stationary and you're relaxing. But this world's a world of working. And so, therefore, Hashem tells a person, he says that having these desires within you is a sign that I want you to stay alive and that you still have a purpose on this planet. If you don't have those desires anymore, then that means you're about to go. You're on your way out. So a person has to keep this in mind, the Tzfer Shlomo says. And he brings an amazing example that shows us that our rabbis and prophets of earlier times were totally aware of this concept. So he says that David HaMelech, for example, towards the end of his life, it says in Tehillim that my heart is hollow within me. To which our rabbis say that is a reference to David HaMelech had defeated his Yetzer Hara. He was no longer tempted by his animal and evil inclinations. And so what ended up happening is, this is the Tzfer Shlomo's explanation, which is unbelievable. I could never say this on my own. He says that his advisors were aware of this. And the people around him, his servants or whatever, they were aware that David was no longer had temptations and evil inclinations any longer towards the end of his life. And that scared them. Because they're like, oh my gosh, if he doesn't have these temptations anymore, he's about to die then. So they literally took it upon themselves to try and spur David's evil intentions up again, or like evil inclination up again. His Yetzer Hara, they tried to stir it up again. So that would be a sign that he would stay alive forever, because we know David Melech Yisrael Chai B'Kayam is what the people used to say. Let the king of Israel live forever. They loved him. And they're like, oh, he doesn't have a desire for women like anymore. He's on his way out then. So what did they do? Because in the Torah, we know that a king is limited to how many wives he could have. It doesn't say exactly the number in the Torah, but our rabbis tell us that it's 18 wives. David already had 18 wives. So they said, okay, that's a perfect way to make him like to give an evil inclination to him. Let's bring a beautiful young lady who he's not allowed to marry just solely because he has too many wives, and bring him around him, and maybe that will get his temptations going again. And all they wanted was that the temptations start going again. Because once you have the temptations going within you, it's a sign that you're still alive. An unbelievable shot in what's going on by David HaMelech. And he says you can actually see this in the verses. Our verses, the verse that comes before this week's Parsha, at the end it says, Ki ta'aseh hayasher b'einei Hashem, ki teitzei lemelchama lo yavecha. Like, how do you do what is right in the eyes of Hashem? By going out to war against your enemy and your evil inclination. So, meaning even when everything is all right in your life, you shouldn't get too confident, because what is it that Hashem wants us to go out and fight against our evil inclination? Because that is a sign that we have what left to accomplish. That is a sign that Hashem wants us to stay alive. So when you feel urges, you should think to yourself, oh, Hashem wants me. He's constantly thinking about me. He wants me to prevail. These urges are good. You shouldn't get depressed because of these urges in whatever area it is. It's a complete reframing. So some people tell you to be ashamed. Yes, you should not give in to those urges. Nobody's saying you should give in to them. But that you have these urges at all and that you're fighting shows that you are deserving of life and that Hashem wants you here on this planet. Okay? Yesha Koach. Have a great Shabbos.